So what is meant by system? Actually you can see, yes, actually you can see you are having a lot of space. You take an universe, whole earth, you are having a lot of space, you are taking an earth. So in that earth, whenever you are considered a quantity of matter or region in space which is chosen for study, we calling it as a system. So you take a small portion or small quantity of matter or a region in a space. So the quantity or amount of a region which is considered for study, which is chosen for study, we calling it as a system. Okay. So in the entire space, we are taking a small quantity of matter or a region in space. Okay. So this quantity we calling it as a system. So this system is separated by the surroundings by means of we call as a boundary. So say for example, you are taking a cricket ground, right? A cricket ground, you will be having a cricket ground for a certain area. So that area inside that boundary line, we calling it as a system. So the surroundings are those viewers will be sitting in the stadium. Okay. So you take a stadium as an earth. So the surroundings will be the viewers will be watching cricket, and the system will be the space that is covered in a boundary line. After boundary, it is called as surroundings. That surroundings and systems are separated by a line, we call it as a boundary. So the same way, the system also. A system is defined as a quantity of matter or region in space which is chosen for study. So the mass or region outside the system. So whatever it is outside the system, we calling it as a surroundings. So the real or imaginary surface that separates the system from surrounding. You see in cricket stadium, in cricket pitch, you can see a rope which forms a boundary line. So that boundary line either may be real or imaginary surface that separates the system from its surrounding is called boundary. And able to understand what is system, what is meant by surroundings, what is meant by boundary. So quantity of matter or region and space which is chosen for study is called system. So beyond that system, everything we call it as a surroundings. The mass or region outside the system we call it as surroundings. This system and surroundings are separated by a real or imaginary surface we call as a boundary. The boundary of the system can be fixed or movable. This boundary can be either fixed or movable. Okay. Please note the boundary is the contact surface shared by both the system and the surroundings. Okay. Mathematically, when you are speaking, boundary has zero thickness. So I have said actually in cricket stadium, you'll be having a rope of certain thickness, right? You can see that boundary line rope will be having certain thickness, but practically mathematically speaking, when you are considering the system in the thermodynamic problem, that boundary has a zero thickness. So it is both in contact with surroundings as well as in system, right? So that it can neither contain any mass nor occupy any volume in space. So that is what I'm trying to say. So this boundary does not contain any mass or occupy any volume in this space. It is a zero thickness a line surface which separates systems and surroundings. Okay, right. This systems, it is again classified into three types. One is open system, second one is closed system, third one is isolated system. This system is again classified into three major categories. The first one is open system, the second one is closed system, and the third one is isolated system. We will be see one by one what is meant by open system, what is meant by closed system, what is meant by isolated system. So these are all the types of system. If you are very clear about system, then we can move on to the types of system. So what is closed, what is meant by open, what is meant by isolated. Very simple. So as I have already said, you are taking a system, say for example, a cup of coffee. So in that cup of coffee, the heat transfers from system to the surroundings, right? If you are taking a cup of coffee as a system, so here your cup of coffee, this boundary is the your cup, the heat transfer from system to the surroundings, right? This is what happening. So whenever the heat energy flows, okay, we calling it as an open system, right? Heat energy flows from the system into the system or from the system. We calling it as a open system. Whenever, and also the mass can also flow, okay, right? In the system, if it is an open system, the mass can be in and out and energy can be in and out. Energy can be flow into the system, energy can be flow from the system, mass can be flow into the system, mass can be flow from the system, okay? When if it is a closed system, there is a fixed amount of mass, which means if the system is closed, no mass can be transferred from the system. Only energy can be transferred from the system. That is no mass can enter or leave a closed system. Only energy can be transferred. Say for example, if you take a cup of coffee, that energy can be transferred from system to surroundings. But when you keep that cup of coffee in a table so far long, say for example 10 hours, 12 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours, if you keep for so much period of time, only energy is transferred, no mass is transferred. The quantity of the coffee remains the same in the cup of coffee, right? So that kind of system we calling it as a closed system. Energy can transfer from into the system or from the system. Whereas you take, for example, if you are having a water heater, okay, geyser, water geyser in your home. So what is actually happening? So whenever you switch on the water geyser or water heater, the volume of water present in the geyser is getting heated to a certain temperature, right? So the energy of the water is, or temperature of the water is getting increased. Water gets hot. So whenever you open the pipe, the hot water comes out through the pipe, and what happens immediately there, you can note, whenever a certain quantity of hot water comes, that mass is immediately filled with the cold water. Have you ever seen like that? So it is the way the water geyser or water heater works. Whenever you take, say for example, 2 liters of water, hot water, that water geyser is immediately filled with 2 liters of cold water from your overhead tank. That is the concept the water heater working. So here, this, let us take water heater as a system. In the system, the mass of system and the energy of system can be transferred. Say, see, you can quantity of water you are taking out, so mass is coming out from the system. And the same time, mass is entering the system. Quantity of water is entering into the water geyser. So this kind of system, energy, the cold water is getting heat energy. Okay, this kind of system we calling it as a open system. So in that open system, both mass and energy can transfer. Okay, mass can be transferred from the system to the system, to the system to the surroundings. Okay, so similarly, energy can transfer into the system and transfer from the system to the surroundings. So this type of system is called an open system. And the third system is isolated system. So isolated system is nothing but a simple example, as I have already explained you, a flask. Okay, so if you keep a water or any hot water or any hot coffee or cold water or cold coffee, whatever something may be, you keep at a certain temperature, that heat or mass cannot be transferred from system to the surroundings. So that kind of system we call it as an isolated system. So no mass can be transferred into the system or transferred from the system. No heat, no energy can be transferred into the system or transferred from the system. So that kind of system we calling it as an isolated system. So in practically speaking, isolated system never lets the energy and mass to transfer in or out from the system. But as I have already told you, if you keep for a prolonged period of time, the energy gets decreased. So what it shows, isolated system, there may be some quantity or part of energy may be leaking to the loophole. Okay, so in practical, there is no isolated system. There is no such as isolated system. We are having open system, closed system. In practical, you cannot. If the isolated system remains same, then the what temperature you have kept the substance in that flask should remain same. But over a period of time, prolonged period of time, it gets changed. Okay, so in practically speaking, there is no isolated system, right? Can you able to understand the three types of system? Okay, you can see the video.